Hey, Johan.
Cory.
Hey,
Hey,
Greg.
perfect. Excellent. Guys, we're going to get started in just about 30 seconds. I'll go ahead and kick this thing off. We do have some people. We are live streaming now. We do have a few people in our waiting room. So basically, we'll kind of get started here in about 30 seconds, and then we'll sort of edit this video to kind of just coincide with right about the start of the Q&A, just to make everybody aware. We should have that video live and updated. Typically 3-4 hours. Takes YouTube a little bit of time to get that done, and then we'll obviously share that with the DMM team. We'll share that kind of with our community as well, and kind of spread the word on that. So for those that don't get a chance to watch us, or maybe you have to hop off after the first couple minutes, we'll have that recording available to you kind of very shortly after this call. Perfect. All right. So are everybody ready here to go ahead and get started?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, I'm good.
Perfect. Well, I just want to say thank you, everybody, for joining us today during this live stream. I want to specifically thank the DMM, Chainlink, and blockchain communities for joining us. In addition, specifically Greg Keogh and Cory Kaplan, who represent DMM during this call, and with Johan, the product manager for Chainlink. So the overall goal of this Q&A is really to allow the community to learn more about this integration, specifically learn more about kind of the cool things that DMM is building, and really explaining what makes this integration unique and beneficial to both teams moving forward. So we're looking for kind of a sort of a fireside chat Q&A section for about the first 30 to 40 minutes. And then we'll have about 5 to 10 minutes to take some questions from the audience. If you do have any specific question that was not addressed, you can by all means reach out on any of the Chainlink channels. I know DMM Twitter, Greg and Cory, is that the best way to kind of get access to you guys? Or if people have questions after the call, what's the best way for them to reach out to your team?
I would say either that or Discord works pretty well as on top of that. Yeah.
Excellent. Perfect. In the description, I will post all the relevant links for them as well. So again, if you're watching this and you have a question that didn't get addressed, feel free to hop in that Discord. I'll provide that link for you as well. Excellent. So for kind of question number one, we'll go ahead and start with Gregory here. Could you kind of just explain a little bit maybe about your background, sort of who you are, what you do for DMM, and kind of maybe what got you started in this space?
Yeah, sure. So thanks for having us, Rory. We appreciate it. And yeah, as you can all see, I have a little bit of gray hair here. So I've been in the fintech space for probably 25 years. So going back actually to like the 90s when browsers and the internet was just starting, had an early online financial portal, they were called in those times, which was acquired by Citigroup, built one of the first loan interfaces actually for the mortgage market into Freddie Mac's automated underwriting system, and realtor.com acquired that. And then so mostly doing kind of like fintech venture-backed gigs. I did one more corporate position, which was more recently, where I was the CEO for a joint venture between MasterCard, who I'm sure most of you know, and Telefonica, those in Europe, elsewhere, large global communication company. And so I was the CEO running mobile financial services for them. And that's when I kind of got into the blockchain space. And then proceeded on to start other fintech companies and got together with Cory about 2 years ago and looking how we could bridge real world assets that are producing yield with the blockchain. And that's obviously how we all got together here, but exciting journey for sure.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you so much for that introduction. Cory, how about yourself?
Yeah, so as for myself, I co-founded Dolomite back in beginning of 2018, which is a decentralized exchange. We have some upcoming announcements where we'll actually be using Chainlink for some things, so stay tuned for that. But overall, I've been involved in the crypto space since about 2015 or so, initially as a user turned developer since I went to school for computer science and business. Prior to co-founding Dolomite, I made financial software for a Fortune 500 company called Equitable that ended up selling it off via a licensing deal. But naturally, as Greg had suggested, we'd known each other for quite some time now, and the commingling of mixing in real world assets, which is their expertise, with more of the DeFi and crypto space, which is where our expertise has lied, really has been one hell of a journey so far. We're excited to continue working on this together.
Perfect. Excellent. Johan, I know most of the community knows you, but if you wouldn't mind just taking a couple seconds and introducing what you do.
Yeah, sure. So I've been at Chainlink for a bit over a year now. I'm working mainly on getting projects to start using us, for basically DeFi and many other, ecosystem areas. So I think we're at a stage in crypto where actually so much value and so much ideas are starting to pop up that really projects need more security and need more kind of reliability in the way they use price oracles. And Chainlink is at this intersection where we can help them and provide everything they need for these use cases. So yeah, I've been working mainly on this, and I've had the chance to work with, a brilliant team such as, the DeFi Money Market team, which is here. And yeah, that's about all.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much. So kind of moving on to the next question, Cory, Greg, feel free to kind of take this one, whichever one of you prefers. But for you, why did Chainlink kind of make sense in terms of this integration?
Sure,
Yeah,
I can
Cory,
jump
you want me?
in for that.
You want to take it first or me? Either way.
Why don't you start and then I can jump in
Okay,
after.
I'll start, then you can jump in after. Yeah, so I think what for us is really, really exciting about Chainlink is kind of without the Chainlink oracles, we actually couldn't do what we're doing. So in bridging real world assets with the crypto world, you must have, these oracles that are reliable, tamper proof, that are kind of, allowing us to manipulate these smart contracts in a way that's meaningful. And so Chainlink is an essential component to this. And I think we've just started out kind of with the first step with making viewable on-chain the assets, the security behind the assets and other things. But certainly it's the beginning of when we kind of mesh these two markets together, which again, the traditional financial system, you're talking about trillions of dollars, having these kind of complex oracles that could do calculations and meld things together is really, really important. And I think that this is just kind of the first step, what we've launched so far in DeFi Money Market, is the first step in this longer journey to bridging these two worlds together.
Yeah, so I'd say just adding on to that then, knowing what has in place and the trajectory that the organization has made this a pretty easy choice for us to work together. And aside from that, Johan and I had a pretty long-standing relationship even before his time at Chainlink. So we've always been looking for ways to work together, and then knowing that he was working there, it became even more of a natural choice. But Greg said it really well. Overall, we're trying to bridge real-world assets with things going on chain, which is a really messy thing to do, and in this way in particular that we're doing it hasn't really been done before. Or if it has, it's definitely in experimentation mode. So overall, we're really excited to basically break some eggs and throw things against the wall and see what sticks in working on this together. And we have a pretty strong engineering team across both organizations that could really help try to get this done.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you so much. Johan, kind of taking the reverse of that question. Why did it make sense for Chainlink to pursue this integration?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, DeFi Money Market is actually a great example of a project which Chainlink wants to support, right? So the whole reason we were created was to support the growth of the ecosystem for DeFi, for insurance, etc. DeFi Money Market actually accesses real-world assets and puts them on chain, right? And the bridge here is Chainlink. So on our side, we had kind of we have every reason to have projects which are going to grow the ecosystem, because Chainlink as a protocol relies on the growth of DeFi, and seeing projects like DeFi Money Market, which are kind of breaking the boundaries of what was possible yesterday, is something which makes complete sense for us to support, right? Like the more this ecosystem grows, the better everyone is, and the more Chainlink as an ecosystem will grow as well, right?
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. Moving on to the next one, I think we sort of touched on it, but sort of some of the challenges. But Greg or Cory, would you kind of speak about mainly some of the bigger challenges of bringing sort of these real world assets on chain and kind of allowing people to sort of interact with this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that one of the biggest challenges is, we're not dealing with a trivial size or a trivial pool of assets at this point. Even the initial seeding of the ecosystem was a little bit less than 1,000 assets, basically, and so we're already dealing with a data bottleneck things on chain. So we had to get pretty creative at how we're doing that, and that became a pretty interesting problem for us to solve initially, but prior to our launch, and then with that, there's a whole host of things that will be coming along the way as we continue to work on this. The first and foremost thing, as Greg and I have said, is putting the assets on chain and making some data available for consumption that will basically inject trust and transparency where it wasn't already there. But moving aside from that, there's an entire other part of our organization which happens to deal with the movement of value or fiat money that's outside the crypto space and outside the smart contracts that needs to get put on chain for transparency's sake. And that'll be a really interesting problem to solve with Chainlink and with the things you guys are building out.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much for the answer. Um, what do you think the overall value is? And again, whoever wants to answer this one, what do you think the overall value is, or what's the purpose of needing a decentralized Oracle solution in this case versus some kind of self-built centralized system?
I'd say the overall tamper resistance aspect of this is extremely important. Of course, for right now, we could have initially seeded the ecosystem and did a minimum viable product launch with some kind of homegrown Oracle system, but we're in the long game with this, and we needed to get some trust in there early on when we first launched, or else there'd be like, we wouldn't be able to just run like a centralized system entirely, and it would be like, what's the point of running this on chain whatsoever? So on top of that, you make certain decisions as you're working on smart contracts that are largely immutable. Um, and with those decisions, what we wanted to do is lay the groundwork for us to plug in more modular points for Chainlink to get involved as we figure out some of the answers to these questions we have or these problems that we have. Like I mentioned before in the last question with the movement of fiat money, right now we have a module, for example, that basically returns empty data, but it's very pluggable, and that once we kind of figure out what the integration point looks like and we have all of our things figured out with it between Chainlink and DMM, we could basically swap that piece out, and now Chainlink becomes one extra part of DMM's ecosystem, and it becomes that much more valuable to us. So this is also kind of like training wheels, the way I look at it. Training wheels are on the bike right now, but overall, we're going to be slowly taking them off, and the idea is that Chainlink will become the thing that's basically driving the bike then from there on forth.
Yeah, and I think if I could add too, Rory, I think what Cory says is totally spot on. But the other thing is we're looking, while we're doing a first smaller test of $10 million or so, we're really looking to build a multi-trillion-dollar market, right? So this is maybe where my old financial services hat, more traditional, comes into play, because there's tremendous scale possible here. But again, we must have the oracles from Chainlink. It's essential. And I think one of the things that DeFi Money Market and DMM is doing is, which is interesting in today's economy, is that yield now is zero pretty much globally, right? And there's about 17 actually trillion, and now it's much higher now, but in negative yielding debt. So then by using Chainlink and the infrastructure we built, you can actually get yield on assets, and you can come in and out of it very, very easily, and it pays like 6.25%. So while we're in the very initial, this is a very long journey, right? And so part of the reason to kind of build this with an expert like Chainlink is it's the beginning of a very long journey where we're really looking to build a large market. And to do so, you have to have the expertise in all these different areas. And Chainlink obviously is a great resource to build this with.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much. Pushing this back to Johan, how has it been, working with the, DeFi Money Market team and getting this integration done? Is it something that was done relatively quickly? Was it a long-term thing? How did that look from the Chainlink perspective?
Yeah, I mean, on our side, it was extremely quick and easy, right? So on our side, we just provide the tools, and users and developers, they do whatever they want with the tools. I think on the DMM side, you guys were able to integrate maybe in a few days once we had everything on chain. So it's pretty straightforward, honestly. Like it's the use case was also so interesting for us, right? Because it's data, but this data, it wasn't price data from CoinMarketCap or from DNC. It was basically car loans which were being tokenized on the blockchain. So it was also it was a new experience. It was something new which we hadn't done before. So that was really cool also to do.
Awesome.
And if I can add also to that, I think it's also a testament to how strong Chainlink's technology is, that a lot of your use cases right now have been price feeds, but it only took a little bit of extra labor and love for you guys to be able to translate this over to a completely different asset class and a different use case. And I have to tip my hat off to the Chainlink team for really being able to do that quickly and very efficiently.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. Getting back, I think we talked a little bit, Johan mentioned car loans. Greg or Cory, could you kind of talk about kind of what is being tokenized now and maybe what you're looking to continue to tokenize down the road?
Yeah, so we're looking, as we really do smaller use cases of different asset classes, right? To kind of actually show people how this could work, because that's the beginning of building a larger kind of market and ecosystem. And so we started with cars, partly because it's something very easy for folks to understand. And it was easy to put that data on chain using Chainlink. I think the other thing we're looking at is real estate. But again, we look at very specific markets within these broader markets that have kind of three fundamental characteristics that make it enabled in the DeFi money market system. So the first is must be assets which can have a first lien senior secured position in. And what that really long word means is basically if anything goes wrong, you have the right to the asset, right? If the person doesn't pay, et cetera, you can recover it. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that it needs to be over collaterals in payment streams. And so if we're paying 6.25%, these assets actually are producing more in case anything goes wrong. And this, we'll talk later maybe about the DMM DAO, but that has a layer of governance in there as well. And then the third is the asset itself is over collateralized, meaning it's worth more. So I think this is the basis. So we're looking at real estate, specific segments of real estate. We've looked at aircraft and some of these things we've done before. And the idea is to test out different things so people can see a flavor, and then we would start to build up from there.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you for that. Yeah, I think it's always they see the first use case and everyone gets excited. And I think everyone starts thinking about, well, there's 1,000 other use cases. And I think that's the case, but I think it's the key is sort of progressively building that level of trust and adding things that really do have value. Awesome. Talk a little bit, you just mentioned, Greg, the DMM DAO. So obviously DAOs are kind of a hot thing in this space right now. Would you mind kind of exploring a little bit maybe about why you particularly are kind of going that direction and maybe what benefits that brings to this project?
Yeah, so I'll let Cory, we got a bunch of things going on that front. So we recently announced, I don't know, Tim Draper purchased, whom a lot of people know in the crypto space, purchased a stake in the DMM DAO. I'm very happy to be working with him and the whole team there. Part of the reason is we think to broaden the appeal of this and from a governance perspective, we think we're kind of on a journey to that decentralized governance. I mean, I think that's where it ends up. I do think along the path, you need to have kind of like barriers in line just to keep it on track so the project keeps moving, et cetera. So we're kind of still in the early stages, but we are making, we're looking actually in 12 months to kind of have it totally all governance through the DMM DAO. Cory can talk some more about different things we're doing on that as well, because there's quite a bit going on there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the other thing I would also add to that is by transitioning over to a DAO, we recognize that assets can be coming from different geographic regions and people with different expertise in certain areas. So being able to have diversification there, not just from our perspective in the US and other areas of the world, but also people that have expertise as well, is very important, let alone all the technological expertise that'll come along the way and the different areas that can basically meld together by bringing the formation of this as a DAO. But then adding to that, then we're looking at a couple of different ways that we could bring the DAO into fruition, in which basically people have a say on the direction of things. We'll be looking at working with the DX DAO actually to bring this into the light, which will be great because they've been running for quite some time now. There's a lot of industry experts working in that group, people that are highly technological, people that have been working solely off simply proposals actually and grants. That are used to actually working in that highly technical and highly remote work sort of area. So these are great people to start to see the ecosystem with. And the way that these proposals and things like that will actually come together is through the DMG governance token, where basically your stake or your ownership of the token corresponds to your weight in the vote. And we'll be putting things in there that can help prevent against people from borrowing the asset in order to increase sway in voting and things like that, and different kind of attack vectors. But overall, the main point is that there's a really neat way to bring together these great minds from different industries, and not just from the crypto space or DeFi space, but from other industries as well, and grant them a voice and be able to have them play a part in it. We think that the idea that we're onto right now is something very exciting and something that other people are willing to try also. But if we make a DAO, it'll kind of make this this sort of project something that people want to work with us on instead of compete with us on, because they can just join the DAO then and then work on it with us together.
Awesome. Very cool stuff. Taking a kind of a bigger step back here. What are kind of some of the unique, obviously being in the DeFi space, which is probably the hottest space really in kind of all of blockchain right now. What are some of the big challenges kind of that you've seen maybe from a sort of big picture perspective that you think this whole space is currently kind of working through or needs to figure out?
That's a really good question. The first thing that came to mind as you were asking that is I think that a lot of people have a certain idea in their head of what DeFi is right now. Um, and overall, the way that Greg and I look at the space is, it's permissionless access to things. It's transparent. It's able to freely move, and it's composable with the rest of the Ethereum ecosystem if it's on the Ethereum blockchain, that is. But overall, I think that a lot of people have this very tunnel vision like view of what DeFi is. And overall, our goal is to broaden DeFi and bring it out to the masses. We think that concepts like this of tokenizing vehicles is the way to go to get something out there to traditional people that would understand this, whether it's end retail or potentially hedge funds or other institutional clients. But overall, our goal is to basically bring DeFi to the masses and to those people that we always talk about, want to see using DeFi and involved in crypto, but we don't really know how we're going to get them in there. We think that we have the team and the project to help bring that to the light.
Yeah, I would add in there too. I also saw like people adopt products because of a compelling reason, right? And so right now, and I think Sergey even mentioned it, I think one of the things he said is, I believe this will be one of the use cases maybe to drive adoption of people maybe not in crypto to enter crypto because there's no yield, right? So the fact that you could, in fiat, you can't get yield anywhere and it doesn't matter who you are. So I think the fact that you get 6.25% in a way that you can just come in and out of it whenever you like could be a compelling reason for traditional people to try to adopt adopt DMM and adopt and get more involved in the crypto ecosystem.
Absolutely. I think in this space, incentives on every single level is one of the big main drivers. Johan, throwing this kind of question to you and sort of, kind of DeFi, what are some of the challenges or what do you think the big things that maybe are currently being tackled that sort of need to happen for everyone to kind of take the next step?
I mean, the funny thing, in my opinion, is that DeFi, like, in order to get DeFi adoption, the traditional systems need to really, not really fight in some way, but they need to, like people need to see that at some point, the stuff we've been doing in traditional markets doesn't really work anymore, right? Bitcoin was born out of the crisis in 2008. And I think that's something that a lot of people forgot, is that Bitcoin was born in the exact same situation that we have today, right? I mean, actually, it was a bit better at the time. We weren't on lockdown. But today, I think we actually are getting the atmosphere that needs to prevail in order to see DeFi adoption. We're seeing more and more super interesting projects like DeFi Money Markets, which are pushing the boundaries of what's possible and which are offering yields that you don't see in the traditional markets, right? We're seeing more and more of the stuff which you have in traditional markets being replicated with margin trading, with lending, borrowing, all of this stuff, right? And at the same time, we're seeing the traditional markets which are kind of falling out in some way, right? I mean, if you look at what's happening, it's a bit distressing. So I really see that most of the conditions which needed, which are an extremely rich and thriving ecosystem on the DeFi space, on the DeFi side, and an ecosystem on the traditional market side, which starts to become, which goes to its reasonable conclusion, which is basically the stuff we've been having for years wasn't sustainable. And I think we're starting to see that, right? Where like now we are printing trillions of dollars, like it's a small number, like 1 trillion here, 1 trillion there. Why not? Like that's
Everyone gets a trillion.
Yeah. So I'm not saying sorry, go ahead.
No, I totally agree with Johan, because I think if you can see it, obviously you're correct. Crisis breeds innovation, and certainly we've seen that the markets, like actually crypto stabilized before traditional markets. I mean, now after the $1 trillion, now they've stabilized, but they weren't really stabilizing. And so I think that one of the things that we're seeing is, I think this is going to be a wake-up call to many people, including in the traditional financial segment, to say, hey, things are broken and there's a better way to do it. It's a great way to start to rethink things. And I think from a DeFi perspective, I think people have to remember this is a long journey. And so literally, even though we've taken a baby step even here with DeFi Money Market, but there's literally trillions of dollars passing through traditional financial systems of different loans and everything, where you actually don't even see what the loan is. You never see the specific asset, you don't see anything. And so we've made a baby step here, and there's certainly room that we can use to improve, make better, more transparent, no doubt about it. But compared to the traditional financial system, even our initial product iteration is much superior, I believe, as far as just giving people a view into things. And I think that once people get an appetite for that, and there's a benefit of yield, and again, I go back, totally agree with Johan, is that the current system has many, many problems. And I think it's becoming more and more evident to the general population, which will then push people even harder to say, I at least want to diversify out of the traditional system, if not jump totally out. And you can see people like, Tim Draper said, I think 30, 40 days ago, he was totally out of all fiat. He was all in crypto. I mean, he's a pretty smart guy. And so you see a lot of people doing this. So I think this actual market turbulence is extremely positive for those in the ecosystem.
Absolutely. Crisis, seems to bring out the best, I think, in everyone, sort of all over the world. Wish it wasn't always happening like that, but I think that's just a reality. We've sometimes got to be pushed to innovate or pushed to accept new innovations.
I think one thing I could also add to Greg's point prior to that was it's very interesting seeing how this technology basically is cutting out certain important pieces that would be there in the traditional world where they would be getting a cut. And what we're really trying to do here is aside from democratizing access, we're also trying to increase the yield that everyone ends up getting from accessing the ecosystem, because we're cutting out a lot of pieces of the equation that would normally be there, because there's honestly a lot of fluff in the traditional world in order to bring a product like this to market. In a product like ours, where we're really able to replace a lot of this with automated systems that were created by Chainlink to the Chainlink nodes. We're able to create a lot of this through the magic of Ethereum smart contracts and bringing this directly to the consumer that way. And one of the great things that I really don't want to lose sight of is just the fact that it's really amazing that we're able to cut out so many things that people in the traditional world, if they got wind of what we're working on right now, would really spin their heads at what's possible today, what's out working today, and what our current product iteration looks like, and really where this can go in the future. I think that once more people start to see this on the retail front, the institutional front, the users are going to start to flock over, as we mentioned. And I think that our competitors, which really is the centralized world of traditional finance, they're going to be looking at this and shaking in their boots.
Okay, well, awesome. Well, before we kind of wrap things up, I want to give the DeFi Money Market team, Greg and Cory, a chance. You talked maybe about sort of your long-term vision of like a year out with the DAO, but if you're willing, can you kind of let people know maybe what to expect sort of in the short term, maybe within the next 6 months, that they can kind of look forward to as they follow the progress of your project?
Yeah, so we have a lot of stuff underway. So I think one of the things we're seeing is, again, what we initially put out, the DeFi Money Market and DMM, was the ability for folk, like our immediate goal was, let's let people try this, test it, see it, touch it, instead of just talking about it. And so we kind of took a little kind of contrary approach in that we kind of didn't say anything and then we just did it. And I think we like that approach. We like to build things. And so the idea right now is things are there. People can go to DeFiMoneyMarket.com. They can, buy it, test it, try it, see it. And this is the idea we're at now. And now we're kind of, I think we're going to see many more, and many of these will be announced in the not too distant future, partnerships of people in the ecosystem to connect into the DMM, right? So there's plenty of people we can think of as saying, I have people who would be interested and may hold, USDC, DAI, and we just launched Ether today and it yields 6.25%. So that's pretty competitive. So if you're a long-term holder of ETH, you can actually hold on to it long-term, get that benefit in value appreciation, plus earn interest along the way. So I think we'll start to connect this into many other people and well-known groups that a lot of folks know in the ecosystem. So that's an exciting part and a big area of focus. Cory, do you want to talk a little bit more on the kind of technical front and some other items?
Yeah, sure. So just speaking to what Greg said with the integrations, we're looking to get this included in the different applications that show yield or compare rates between different DeFi projects, really like the yield trackers, as we call them. There's a bunch of different DeFi portals and apps as well we want to get it included into. And then there's also like, by layer 2, I don't mean like scaling solutions, but there's like layer 2 products that build on top of existing lending applications, do automatic rebalances and things like that we want to get it included into. And I think that'll be a really interesting use case because DMM is uncorrelated from the yield that's produced in the rest of the market that's in the world of DeFi, and it's also very static. Whereas other rates are changing every single day or every week. ours have been static since our launch, and we have no intention of changing them, and no reason to change them for the time being, which is great. So we think that that'll be a really interesting use case. And we're really excited to see what kind of things people will build on top of this in order to be able to build out the best possible product for the end user so that they can take advantage of this. The other thing is to touch on what Greg mentioned is we'll be looking to distribute DMG further. We're going to be using the Dutch X from the DX DAO, which will be a Dutch auction protocol for getting a portion of the DMG tokens out there to anyone that's looking to get involved, because we don't just want to see people like Tim Draper get involved, we want to see other people as well. The DX DAO being one of them as well. And we have a couple others that we'll be announcing in the future, which will be really exciting to do.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. Before we kind of finally wrap anything up, I'll throw it to Johan first. Johan, you have kind of any parting words for anybody here watching the stream?
Yeah, sure. I mean, look, I think honestly, it's great to have this AMA now, because it really shows an alternate kind of way to use financial systems, right? Which people weren't aware of, and which even in the DeFi space is extremely new and innovative, right? Like in this space, which keeps changing, we have this new thing, which is DeFi Money Market, which is doing stuff that no one did before. I think it's important to keep seeing this innovation, as we are seeing in the segment just before. Like a crisis brought on Bitcoin, and I imagine this crisis will bring on a lot more new ideas and a lot more stuff we should be using in the 10, 20, 100 years from now on. So yeah, I think it's really super exciting times, and definitely excited to be working with the DeFi Money Market team and to have Chainlink, be at the center of all of that. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, Johan. Cory, how about yourself? Any parting words before we wrap this one up?
I think Johan said it really well, but on top of that, we're really excited to be working with the Chainlink team. I think that one of the things that a lot of people don't realize with your team is really just the level of professionalism and efficiency you guys bring to the table in a lot of areas. In the past, Greg and I have taken meetings where what could have been said in 15 minutes takes an hour, and you guys are on the side of things where it would literally take 14 minutes instead of 15. Another side of things has been very quick to integrate and throw anything out there. Whenever we have a new idea or want to experiment with something, it's been very quick to get something up on the test network or to get something looked over by your team. So we're really appreciative of that. And I think that that's a testament to how many integrations and partnerships you guys have announced recently. I think made an efficient system for onboarding and for operating, which is great. So with that, we're really excited to continue the integrations with you guys and continue to use Chainlink into the future on not just our existing solutions, but all the things that we talked about that will be coming soon with tracking and more transparency. And with that, our launch of METH, we're actually using one of Chainlink's sponsored oracles for getting the price of ETH on chain for calculating our collateralization level. So once again, it's just one more thing that we threw out there with you guys, and it's a testament to what you guys already have produced and where you guys are going.
Awesome. Thank you, Cory. Greg, any kind of parting words before we finish this?
No, I just think we're at the beginning of a very exciting journey. The first couple steps here with DeFi Money Market, DMM, and Chainlink, in trying to really reimagine how the financial system can work. And it actually really is that big. And by combining the feeds and the oracles that give us these essential data points to kind of rethink how this could work, which has enormous benefits for consumers. I keep coming back to that. People do things because consumers have a benefit. We have a very clear kind of, you have more transparency, you get a better interest rate, you can come in and out of it. And so I think this is just the beginning of a lot of exciting things that we do together to kind of try to reform this financial system that we all identified is incredibly broken. But it is very large. So I think we can eat away slowly at part of this by showing new use cases that people can touch, see, try, etc. as we start to grow this out. So I just encourage anybody who's interested to go experiment with DeFiMoneyMarket.com and see how it works.
Yeah,
awesome.
And if you want to get involved, please reach out to us. We're very vocal people, and we love talking to people that want to get involved, no matter what the area is.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And I'll make sure to post all those links shortly as well. So if you want to explore DeFi Money Market, you want to explore Chainlink, you want to talk to any of these teams, you're one click away from being able to do so. And so again, that kind of wraps up our video Q&A today. I want to thank Greg and Cory, along with Johan, for joining us, and all the community members who view the stream and kind of make all this possible. We're looking to do more of these in the future. We'll look to do more with DeFi Money Market in the future as new features come out, as they continue to build more things. I think there's a lot of great opportunities to continue to spread the word about the cool, innovative things going on. So we'll definitely invite you to those as well. Again, make sure to subscribe if you want to see more of this great content. If you have any recommendations, by all means, sure, I'm happy to do so. Thank you again, everybody, for joining us, and we look forward to the next time.
Thanks again.
Thank you,
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.